story I want to tell again, a story I've already told, stories from my life. Grandma's porch. Sit down, relax, enjoy. Here on Grandma's porch. I want to tell this story one more time. Stories from my life. Hello, y'all. I'm Dianna Brianne. Well, y'all know I've been telling all these little bits and pieces from my life. I call them stories from my life. Rewind the past, looking in the rear view mirror of my life. You know, different kind of titles I've called it. And I've been sharing a lot. And I love it. I love it. Not only is it cathartic in a very positive way, but I think people really enjoy my stories. And they're very digestible for the most part. I think they're all digestible, meaning that they're all easy to take in. Well, this story I've told several times, and I've told it not just as a story, but as a video. But because so many people are going through difficult times right now, I have wanted to share my story. Well, first of all, you know, I don't give information, advice, recommendations. I'm just here for entertainment purposes, okay? And I do hope you like, share, subscribe to all 5 channels. Links are pinned at the top of the comment section below. And if the links aren't working, just copy and paste, please. Thank you. Well, this story goes back, and many of you have heard it, but I'll share some more details. This story goes back about 10 years when I took sick. And I've called, you know, numerous videos when I took sick, brain aneurysm, you know, all kinds of different titles. And because there's so many people, it seems like they're dealing with so much right now, I just want to be an inspiration of hope for people. Not advice, not suggestions, but just of hope that someone else has maybe shared a similar journey. Remember, all of our journeys are different, although they can be similar. And so I called it brain aneurysm, but to be truthful, I don't know what it really was. They said it was a brain aneurysm, and it could have quite possibly been because, well, they did the CAT scan after my mother came to me in that dream, if you all remember those videos. And she said I had a lesion on the left side of the brain, and I drove myself to the hospital, told them what my mother said. They put me in the CAT scan, and that was how they determined it had been an aneurysm. But prior to that, I had been sick for several months. And my life was rolling along. I had 3 very young children. My husband was moving up to where we're at now. We live in the South, but just a little further up the road. It was several hours away for his career. But I stayed behind with the kids, not only to finish up. 2 were in public school, 1 was in homeschool, and not only to finish up their schooling, but we were remodeling our house so that we could rent it out at the time. And the kitchen needed remodeling. And so that was going to take some time. So it was about a year span before I got moved up here. My husband brought the motorhome up and lived out of the motorhome, which was wonderful, he said, because it was a beautiful motorhome. And he lived out of the motorhome for a year. And he would come back and forth every couple weeks. But that every couple weeks wasn't really enough at that time when I got sick. So before my husband left, a few days before, he took the 2 boys, my 2 sons, on a Boy Scout trip. And they were gone. And it was just my daughter and I there. And I'm going to tell you kind of an eerie story. I was talking to a friend. It's kind of, what do you call it? Not premonition, but like something that happens before something else happens. And so I was talking to a friend on the phone one night, and I said, oh, hold on, I got to go check something. I hear my daughter up. And I went around the corner, and this is in a different house, of course. And all of a sudden, there was this huge possum-like animal about 3 steps down on the steps, and its eyes, I tell you, were red. Now, people say that possums and that get red eyes at night. It was so frightening, and it wouldn't move. It wouldn't budge. And finally, I clapped my hands real loud, and it ran back up. I called the exterminator. I called everyone, and no one could find anything. They could not find anything, and we never saw it again. But anyhow, I believe that that animal, and I talk a lot about birds and different animals and things, you know, kind of sometimes bring us messages. That's what Grandma taught me. It's only my opinion. Anyhow, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I was choking. I never had an experience like that. I wasn't having any anxiety. I wasn't having no problems. So I called my sister, who was a night owl. She stayed up all night. And I said to her, I said, oh my gosh, I'm choking. She said, just calm down. It's probably some kind of anxiety attack. Maybe you're worried about, you know, your husband and the boys. And I said, maybe that's right. So I was able to go back to sleep. I was able to go back to bed. But it was the strangest thing. I'd never had anything like that where I was choking. And so my husband, so fast forward about 2 more nights, I had a back pain. I had like someone was sticking their thumb in the back of my back to the left side. And I thought it was from carrying a big purse, because I carry a big purse. Okay. So it felt like someone was pushing on my back. So I went to bed, and I kind of slept somewhat throughout the night. My husband was now home with the boys, and I woke up and I went downstairs to get a cup of coffee, and I said, you know, to my husband, my kids were already up, I said, I think I'm going to go lay back down. My back is really bothering me. Feels like someone's pressing on my back. And I set the cup of coffee down, and down to the floor I went. I let myself down because I knew I was getting ready to pass out, and I did pass out. My husband ran over. He was shaking me. Dianna, I was cold and clammy and sweaty. Well, that was the beginning of a year-long journey. I got up. I managed to get up. My leg was quivering nonstop, just nonstop. My heart was pounding, boom, boom, boom. And so I went into the mother-in-law's suite. I threw myself on the bed, and I said, something's terribly wrong. But I'm a person, I don't like to go to the doctors, so I didn't go to the doctors right away. I did end up going to the doctors, 17 different doctors after that. It was doctor number 17 that found out what it was. But anyhow, I was so scared, and my husband was now leaving. He was getting ready to leave. We had to take the motorhome because the step broke on the motorhome. We had to take the motorhome to a motorhome place, and I needed to follow him in the car, the expedition. And so I went ahead, but then my leg quivered so bad, it wouldn't stop, that I had to pull over. And we were almost to the motorhome place, so he just stopped the motorhome. He had the kids in the motorhome. I was able to walk fine, even though my leg was quivering. I got in the motorhome. I had to park the car. Went to the motorhome place. I stayed in the motorhome. The motorhome people took him back to the car, got the car while we left the motorhome. I got out of the motorhome, I got in the car and came home. Called my sister. I said, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know what's wrong with me. So I thought it would go away, and it didn't. And so I waited about 2 weeks before I went to the doctors. I went to the doctors, and he said, well, I think it's just menopause or nerves or something like that. And I said, no, I've never had anything like this. I don't have this kind of stuff. I'm perfectly fine. Everything is great in my life. And it just kept going on and on and on. And so I kept going back to the doctors, and you know, it just, nothing was resolved. There was I had to almost beg for testing at that time, because I don't know if I wasn't believable or what, but my doctor just thought I was too healthy to be sick. And I started, you know, my heart was pounding. It wouldn't stop. It wasn't like an anxiety attack where people have it and then it goes away. This was like 24 hours a day. Boom, 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 boom. It just, you know, my nervous system was hypersensitive. It could feel everything. I had aches and pains I never had before. I could see why someone would have thought I could be a hypochondriac at that time. I could see it. Because I had everything. It was like a spiritual attack. Everything was hitting me all at once, and then I was choking, and then I was spitting up abundances of spit, which is very gross to talk about, but I had to take paper towels with me everywhere I went. Well, what I came to understand, or was explained to me, that when you have some neurological damage, not psychological, remember there's a neurological system in our body where our neurological system is misfiring. I don't give advice or anything like that, but what the doctor told me was, a different doctor, is that you will often develop a lot of phlegm in some situations, and not just because you have a lot of phlegm doesn't mean that you have neurological problems, but in this situation it kind of all added up. And so I had to carry what I call a spit cup and paper towels with me everywhere I went. I was very shaky, I was very scared, and then I began to go through where it felt like someone was choking me. My throat was choking. It didn't go away. Like with anxiety attacks, from my understanding, they go away after an hour or 30 minutes or 2 hours, but this didn't go away. I had it for about 3 months. It was horrible, horrible, horrible. And so I really, to this day, so then they did cardio tests. I wore cardio monitors. Remember, my husband is now gone. I'm trying to take care of the kids. I didn't let them know I was sick. I did everything that a mom is supposed to do. And I kept a smile on my face, and I kept my sickness to myself. But it was extremely hard. And I was so very, very, very scared. And so I just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I remember I would walk the kids to the bus stop, my 2 other children, and it was just down at the end of the block, but it was dark in the morning, so, because it was in autumn time by then. And I remember my big floral nightgown. It was sort of a dress that I wore because I thought if I had to go to the hospital, I would be fully dressed. And so I would walk them, I would pray all the way to the bus stop that I could make it to the bus stop. Once I got on the bus, I would pray all the way back that I could make it to my driveway. That's how scared I was. And that's how sick I felt. I was getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And so Thanksgiving weekend finally came, and I'd gone through so many doctors by then. I've neurologists. No, I don't think I went through a neurologist at that point. The neurologist came after the diagnosis. But remember, a neurologist is to do with the nervous system, not psychologist. Psychologist is to do with psychology. And a lot of people don't understand that. In the old days, they used to call it a nervous breakdown. But a true nervous breakdown, from my understanding, is to do with the nerves and not with just the mind, okay? And I'm not a doctor or anything like that, so I'm not giving any kind of medical talk here. I'm just sharing with you my experience and what I understood. And so there I was, really, really sick and so weak. And I was putting up the Christmas tree. I always put it up traditionally around Thanksgiving. And it was the day after Thanksgiving, and I would put up one ornament and have to sit down for 10 minutes. I was so weak, so weak. And that night, my husband was home. He was home for Thanksgiving. And I drove myself in the middle of the night to the second time go around to the ER. And I told them what my mom had said in the dream. And he put me in a CAT scan. And that was where, when he came back, he said, what your mother said, exactly, a lesion on the left side of your brain is what you have. We're going to keep you here in the hospital. And that's when they brought in a neurologist. They said a blood vessel had broken in my brain. And remember the wooden hanger story where I had run into a wooden hanger that had been wedged. I ran into it, blunt force, into my eye before that. And as I was going from one room into the other, and it was a darkened room that I was going through in the mother-in-law's suite, and there was a big wooden hanger that was wedged in the door, and it was sticking out. And my kids were calling for me in another room, and I kind of was moving kind of quickly, and it knocked me to the floor. It didn't damage my eye. That is a miracle in itself, and it's a miracle that I did not die. And so I really thought at this point I was going to die. Here I am in the hospital. They have an IV in me. They're trying to figure out what to do. But long story short, I ended up going home, and they sent me to a neurologist and put me through a battery of tests, which didn't seem to do a whole lot of good. And little by little, I began to improve. I still had different symptoms, and that was the period of time when that was a very strange year. You know, it's easy to think that it could have been a spiritual attack, because I went up to the attic to take my paintings so that they wouldn't get damaged by the renovators that were renovating our kitchen and our sunroom at the time. And as I was stepping back up out of the attic, the whole floor caved in, and I fell into, partly into the garage below, and I hurt my leg. But prior to that, I had a lump on my foot. All of this just didn't make sense. It was crazy. I had a lump on my foot. And so I went to the doctors and they said, yep, you got a lump on your foot. We'll do an x-ray. Nothing showed up in the x-ray. I thought maybe it was a piece of glass or something. And they said, well, that's unusual. So we'll put you in a PET scan. And they put my foot in a PET scan and nothing showed up. But yet I had this lump. It did not make sense to the doctors why I would have a lump and nothing showing up. It was a very, very strange year. So you can see why I would think that it was like a spiritual attack rather than a brain aneurysm, because the foot would have nothing to do with the brain. So these other things like falling through the attic, you know, which came a couple weeks later after the foot issue, which I was totally bruised up. And during this time, also, my sister, who lived states away, was driving to see a friend one night, and her car slid on black ice and went over the hill. Well, you all know that story. 5 months later, she stayed on a respirator, and for about 5 months, minus one short period of time, she was off of it, and then she passed. So it was a horrendous year. It was a horrendous year. And I just felt like, you know, what in the world is going on? And I was too sick to go to her, but I was handling much of her medical supervision with the doctors over the phone. And here I was sick as well. I was raising my 3 children. I was doing a fantastic job. And my husband was gone. So I was almost like a single mom at that time. And my husband would come back when he could, but his work was very demanding and he wasn't able to come back that often. I felt very isolated and alone, but yet I kept that smile on my face for my children. I kept that great attitude. They never really knew I was sick. And that was kind of when I went to the dollar store and I bought all my prayer candles, and I would have all my prayer candles lined up in the kitchen, and I would pray. I would just pray, dear God, please, you know, heal me, heal me. And I kept my faith because, you know what, I knew that my children would be devastated without me. I knew that they were too young to lose their mother, and I was determined to get well. I'd even made these big boxes and marked it, don't open till you're 30, and it was all of their baby momentums. I put all of their little baby momentums in different boxes, like their little baby shoes and their little baby jackets and their little baby clothes and their little baby books, and how I taught them to tell time. It was like a little clock. And I put all of those in these boxes and labeled it and taped it up real good. And I said, do not open till you're 30, because I really didn't know if I'd make it. That was kind of the beginning of my YouTube channel. But my YouTube channel was really only done for my kids in the beginning, because I wanted them to have a running dialogue of my wisdom. Later, about a year and a half ago, which is, 10 years later, pretty much, I became public with my videos in the sense of, doing them for the public. So you could go back on some of those old videos, from 10 years ago, and you'll see. And they were wonderful, wonderful. And I didn't talk about being sick at the time or anything like that in them. But it was a difficult and challenging time. It really, really was. And so I came on here to share these details. I'm sure I'm forgetting a whole bunch of details in here because there were so many. It was endless, between heart monitors and going to all these different doctors. And my one son, who I was homeschooling at the time, I had to carry my urine, my pee, in a big jug that had to be refrigerated. We had an old refrigerator out in the garage. I put it in. And every third day I had to take it to the hospital for them to ship on a plane to some big hospital to test it. And for about 6 weeks, they thought I had some kind of really awful other disease or other thing. And it was just so scary what I was going through. And you learn about friends at that time. You learn and see people who step in to help you, and people who you thought would help you walk out of your life. So you learn during times like that. In the storms of life, who is there for you and who is not there for you. And I remember that. Are those people still friends? Yes. But do I have a new reality check with them on my part? Absolutely. I would never depend on them at all. And you learn things about other people during your storm. And so I remember all that. I remember watching Catherine Kuhlman Miracle Services, old shows from the 1960s and 70s. I would watch, because I used to watch those when I was like 14 years old. And they were very soothing to me because I was choking all the time, and I would have to sit down by our fireplace at night, propped up on pillows. I would sit there by the fireplace. It was very comforting with my pillows propped up, and I would watch on the computer these old Catherine Kuhlman Miracle Service movies. And I had a particular friend at that time who really was amazing. I have to give him this credit. He was absolutely somebody that I could have never chose to be better. He was a friend, okay? He was a friend, and he supported me in ways that, emotionally, through email, through phone calls, that like I've never seen. And I'm very grateful for his time that he gave me during that time of encouragement and support and comfort. And so you learn the good in people, and then you learn sometimes the not so good. But I remained a great mom through the whole process. I remained, it was just a very, very challenging and difficult time. I remember pulling up, I was driving through town, and I didn't go very far. There were times that I didn't leave at all. And when I did, I remember one time driving down the driveway and driving back up because I was too scared to drive. I didn't know if I was going to be okay, but I had to drive. And I remember later on, I drove down the road, and I was kind of in like a, where everybody stops on the road, and somebody had their music on a little bit loud, not too loud, but a little bit loud. And I thought, they're sitting over there enjoying their life without a care in the world. And here I am, I'm thinking I might be dying. And so it was a big reality check. I remember those little things like that. I remember we went to a church. It was about 2.5 hours away because there was always traffic. We lived in the Atlanta area at the time. And I got stuck in traffic. It's about an hour drive, but with traffic, if you get stuck in the traffic, and we got stuck in traffic that day, that coming home at night, the kids were asleep in the car, and all of a sudden I started choking. I remember choking, and I just said, "Dear God, please get me home. Please get me home." And of course I made it home. And so when we did find out what it was, they didn't really do anything at that point. I guess it had already happened. They weren't able to time when the brain aneurysm, the brain bleed happened. So, they really didn't do anything other than kind of comfort methods like send me to physical therapy, which at that point I didn't need it, and it really didn't do me any good. And so I quit going to that. And it just took time to heal. So was it a brain bleed, a brain aneurysm that caused all this? That's what they said, or the doctor said. Or was it something else? What was it? Was it just a neurological, not psychological, but neurological problem? At the time, my mom had Parkinson's. She had ALS. I was scared of that. I don't live my life in fear, but I was very concerned at that time. And so I really didn't know. And to this day, honestly, I don't know what it really was, even though technically it was said to be like a walking brain aneurysm where you're still walking around, because apparently the vessel that had broke was the best place for it to be in, and to not have debilitating effects, or or worse. And so I don't know. But the reason I made this video again was to share with those people that are going through challenging and difficult times, that to keep your hope alive, because that's all I had at that time, was to keep my hope alive. I knew I needed to be here for my kids, and I was. And today I'm fine. You see, I'm fine. I'm out there running or walking every day. I exercise. I go to college full time. I make YouTube videos. I'm an artist. I'm fine. And yet I went through that. And so I'm not here to give advice, suggestions, information, recommendations. And like I said, I'm here for entertainment purposes, and yet I'm here to give hope to people, to inspire people, to find their own solutions and their own best way in life, and to keep hope alive in your life, and to know that other people have gone through things. Often people look at me and say, "Oh, your life is so perfect." But I've had a lot of rough moments in life too. I've had a lot of amazing moments, beautiful moments, wonderful moments. And yet I've had challenging moments, as I just talked about. Okay. Well, from my house to yours, may God bless you. And I hope to talk to you soon again. And I do hope you like, share, subscribe. Hope to talk to you then. And I hope you enjoyed my story. Talk to you then. Bye-bye. place to relax and a place to enjoy.